Tonight we continue our series of interviews with candidates for Suffolk County District Attorney. Our guest is a former assistant U.S. attorney as well as the first person of color to be the chief legal counsel at Massport. We'd like to welcome Rachael Rollins. Thank you very much for being with us, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, talk about your background and what that would bring to the job of DA.
Yeah, I've had the great fortune of working at a large firm called Bingham McCutcheon. While I was there, I did what they call as a DA rotation, where they send their lawyers into a district attorney's office to actually learn how to try cases and learn at the feet of the really strong litigators and prosecutors in different district attorney's offices. I went to Brockton and learned with some wonderful people there, came back to Bingham McCutcheon, and then ultimately ended up at the U.S. Attorney's Office, where I did some civil work and some criminal work and learned quite a bit about charging decisions, the importance of fairness and equity. I learned from some really great lawyers there, and then I also got an opportunity to lead some legal departments as the general counsel of the Mass Department of Transportation and the MBTA, and then at Massport. So I think I have a pretty unique background. I haven't only been a federal or only been a prosecutor. I haven't only been a criminal defense attorney. I've done a lot of different things that I think will bring a really unique perspective to this job.
Interesting work. Why do you want to be the DA?
Well, first and foremost, Dan Connolly announced that he was not going to seek re-election. I had been thinking about it before then. And it is a really important job. I don't think a lot of people know how much power the district attorney has. I'm not going after it for the power, I promise you that, but it's more so just a really important job in making sure communities are safe and getting justice for victims. But I also believe that can be done in a fair and an equitable way, where a lot of the people that are prosecuted by this office have many problems themselves, right? And so 100% my focus will be on community safety and getting justice for victims, but I also believe we can look creatively at making sure only the violent individuals are getting the significant jail time and doing more diversionary tactics with respect to the less violent or non-violent crimes that we have.
When you think about doing things differently from the current DA or even his predecessors, what comes to your mind first?
Well, I think it's really important that perceptions of some of these offices are off, right? So some communities have perceptions of law enforcement that are based on their experiences, right? And we can't call to question those perspectives because they're based on experiences. I think with the district attorney's office, we need to make sure that there is a good relationship between that office and the communities that they serve. So some of the things I want to make sure I'm doing is first and foremost making sure that assistant district attorneys, right when they get in the door, are getting excellent training. In the DA's office, you can get the job the day you get out of law school. As a federal prosecutor, they don't allow you to even apply, really, until you have at least 3 years of experience. I'm not saying I want to change that necessarily, but I do think we need really great training when people get in. And trainings on things like what the Attorney General did, Maura Healey, implicit bias, right? Making sure that we have people that actually are from the communities that we are serving. And so I think there are great people in the Suffolk County DA's office right now. I've worked with some of them. I'm currently working with some of them on my campaign, but I do feel like we need to make sure that we have good representation from those communities of Winthrop, Chelsea, Revere, and Boston. So we can better serve them. Furthermore, I think that we can do some things to remove the optics, like there is, I don't know whether the word is collusion, but basically what we need to understand, or I want people to understand, is the DA's office and the police work hand in hand with each other. They can't operate without the other. So the vast majority of the time, police are our witnesses. If there's an officer-involved shooting and we are investigating the same police that we are walking hand in hand with into court, that the perception is that possibly we're biased already. There are some things I'd like to do, keeping the control under the DA, but removing it from the office and maybe having a team of former prosecutors, retired judges, former criminal defense attorneys that would handle those cases and report to me what the findings are. The optics of that are just off right now, and I've been very vocal with the district attorney about that.
Another challenge is relating to survivors of crime and getting witnesses to get over the fear of giving testimony. Anything new you would do around those?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I've met with a lot of women, particularly, who have started organizations as a result of losing a loved one, right? And they do speak highly of what the district attorney, the sitting district attorney, has done for them in trying to find justice for their loved one that was murdered. I do believe what we can do, though, is, I'm really troubled by the fact that there are so many unsolved homicides in Boston, in Suffolk County, or in Boston in particular, but Suffolk County in general. And so I want to make sure that we are working hand in hand with the commissioner to really give the community that is waiting for justice, and some people 10, 20 years. This is a lifelong quest for them to find out who did this to their loved one. I want to make sure we're making that a real priority. And that's not to imply I don't think that DA Connolly is. This is hard work, right? This is very, very hard work. But I want to make sure I'm focusing a lot of my attention on that.
Well, one of the unresolved issues at the State House right now in terms of criminal justice reform is whether to change the age at which offenders are considered juveniles. I think the legislature is not going to change it right now, but should that age maybe be pushed up a bit?
Yeah, so there's two different parts of that, right? What I thought was great that I believe they proposed is people from 7 years old to 11 years old are no longer, they're not going to be prosecuted as juveniles. So it starts at 12, which I think is great. There were still some questions about whether or not we were going to raise the age of what a juvenile actually is considered, as there's been so many studies showing that the brain does not even finish developing until we're in 25 years old. So what I want to make sure I say is this is a just wonderful sweeping reform that the elected officials have done, and I think it is a very huge step in the right direction. Yeah, of course there are going to be people like me, when in my position as the chief of legal redress for the NAACP or the ACLU or Lawyers Committee or for Civil Rights and Greater Boston Legal Services, that are going to nitpick and say, oh, you should have done this and that. Overall, this is a wonderful job that the electeds have done. They've taken this really seriously. They've heard people testify on this, district attorneys, victims, survivors. So I overall just have a huge hooray for the work that they've done on this. And yeah, there's still work to be done, but I think this is an amazing step in the right direction.
Thank you very much for being with us.
You bet. Thank you for having me.
Candidate for Suffolk County District Attorney, Rachael Rollins.